It's quite the find. Hello friends, and welcome back to Crow's Thrifty Finds. My name is Melanie. So for this week's video, I'm going to do something a little different. I am going to talk not so much about items that you should pick up to sell on eBay, but kind of the opposite of that. And this has been based on, experiences that I've had or what I've heard from other resellers. And before I get into the list, I just want to give a little caveat that this is strictly, this is my opinion, my perspective. You may have a different perspective. And of course, I encourage you to share that in the comments if you feel so inclined. But this is just my experience and thoughts and some others as well that I've spoken with, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily the master opinion, that everybody should agree with. So feel free to disagree and that's okay. But I'm just sharing from my own experience some items that I have found are not great sellers on eBay. So let's talk about what those items are, because while it's important to know what to pick up, it's also good to know what not to pick up. So I am going to give you all a brief rundown of some items that I believe personally are not the best to sell on eBay for different reasons, and I will discuss those reasons. Item number one, vintage Avon products. A lot of people viewed these as possibly, collectible items at some point, and that's where we tend to go astray. And I'm going to also say that I'm not going to mention Black Diamond VHS or Beanie Babies, but there's a lot of items in general like that. I'm not going to go into big detail about, but that people thought were going to be valuable, and then all of a sudden they just weren't. They became oversaturated, and Avon is one of these items. I have found that 98 to 99% of Avon items are not of value. They're not worth reselling. There will be a few stray, perfume scents and things that were discontinued here and there that maybe you could sell on eBay if you have a full new bottle, you could. But for the most part, Avon is not worth picking up. So you want to avoid most of that. If you have a strong urge to look it up, go for it, because you never know. You could have one of these few rare, valuable items. But just for the majority, Avon stuff, not worth reselling, not worth buying. Item number two. This one's on my list personally, just that I have observed, but Uggs boots. If you can get them for free, not for free, oh my goodness. If you can get them new, you can make some good money on Uggs boots, because Uggs boots are very valuable. They really are. And they're super comfortable. I personally have numerous pairs of Uggs. They are wonderful. But yes, they are pricey while they are new. And I know typically new items, will sell at one rate, and then, used items often on eBay will go down, 50%. On average in value. Uggs boots, even lower, way, way lower than 50%. So, these Ugg boots may sell $100 new, but used Uggs boots are not selling on eBay for $50 used. So if you find used Uggs, they better be in tip-top mint condition, even though they're used, if you want to get a good resale value for them, because you can see on eBay, a lot of these are selling for like $3 a pair. So you really want to be careful with that. And I don't know if it's got to do with the fact that a lot of people wear Uggs as slippers. So maybe that skeeves people out because they can get smelly. I don't really know. And Uggs boots originally were intended to be slippers. That's what the Australians will tell you. So they were meant for that. But us Americans, decided to make them outside shoes. And I'm one of those. So it's totally normal. But yeah, when it comes to used Uggs, they are not high resale value unless you've got a super rare pair, or B, a mint condition pair. So if you see a used pair of Uggs that looks used, I would say good chances are it is not worth reselling on eBay. You will not get good value for these. Number three, Boyd's Bears, these kind of fall under that Beanie Baby category. People think they're more valuable than they are. Sometimes people sell them at garage sales for higher than they should. I've fallen into this trap too. I have purchased Boyd's Bear stuff, and I am going to let you all know that I have only sold one Boyd's Bear anything, and that was a limited edition. It was like a ceramic figure. But yeah, even that sat for a long time before somebody bought it. I bought this one bear at a garage sale, and it's been listed forever with no interest. Nobody wants it. You will see sold comps for Boyd's Bears occasionally to trick you, but sell-through ratio is important in this one because they're really not big sellers. So I would suggest to avoid Boyd's Bears. Number 4, Barbies. Now, I will say I have sold a Barbie for $700 and something back in the day. So there are valuable Barbies out there. I would just say the majority of Barbies are not valuable. So unless you're getting them for super, super cheap, be prepared for low resale values and possibly them sitting on your shelf for a while, depending on what they are. So it's really important that you do your research when it comes to Barbie, because there is a very good chance that your Barbie is not worth that much. And you'll see people trying to sell off Barbie collections for a lot of money, but don't fall for that, because a lot of the times, especially, kind of middle years Barbies, they're not, even if they're new, they're not worth a ton unless they're, certain rare variations. And I encourage you all to do your homework and see what those rare variations are, because they're out there, but there's actually not as many as you would think. Because I've looked into Barbies, once you have a really good sale of a Barbie, you want to have another one, but that's yet to happen for me. So the really valuable ones are few and far between, and the majority of a Barbie you're going to find new in box is not going to be very valuable. So do look it up. Don't just pick it up and think, oh, new old stock, I should sell this. Do your homework for Barbies. And you'll see as I go through this list that there are going to be stuff that do have, valuable items, but you just have to know what they are and what they are not. So that leads me into the next item, which is pound puppies. Maybe you all saw my short not too long ago where I showed a pound puppy from the 80s that was still in the box, and the comps were pathetic. There are a couple of pound puppies that if they're new, you can sell, for in the 30s to 50s, and a few really rare ones that sell for more. But the majority of pound puppies are worth nothing. And if the pound puppy is out of the box and used, yeah, probably worthless. It's very rare to find a pound puppy that is valuable. So if you're just out at a garage sale and you see a used pound puppy, more than likely it is not worth picking up. You'd think it would be. You really would. You would think this brand new pound puppy that I found, from the 80s still in the box would be worth selling. But, even for the little bit that Goodwill wanted for it, it wasn't even priced up or anything. Nope. So yeah, I would say avoid the majority of pound puppies because most of them are not worth anything. So don't just grab it thinking it's going to be valuable and you'll sell it. Look it up, because more than likely it is going to be a waste of your time. Next item is Monster High dolls to an extent. Many Monster High dolls. Now, I'm sure most of you are like, Melanie, did you just say Monster High dolls? Because they're great to sell. And yes, many of them are. Many of the vintage ones are worth selling. We're talking early generations are great sellers. As a matter of fact, Monster High dolls are one of my most sought after items, personally, if I had to label it. However, that said, there are also a ton of Monster High dolls that are not worth anything or barely anything. I have had a pair of Monster High dolls that are not Gen 1, they're kind of middle years ones, not the super new ones either, but the kind that would trick you because they do look like they'd be the valuable ones. But it is important to look for the oldest of the old with Monster High. That is where you're going to get your most value. There are some ones that were made in the later years that are not as valuable. So you do want to look up these Monster High dolls. Don't just grab them because they're Monster High dolls. I have made this mistake, and these mistakes are still sitting on my shelves, even for less than $10 a doll. So maybe you get a Monster High doll for $1 and selling it for $10 is fine. But a lot of the times, Monster High dolls, especially if you find them at Goodwill, you're going to get them for like $5. And then to me, to buy a doll for $5 that's only worth 10 or possibly less, that's not worth it. So do look up the Monster High dolls when you see them. Do not just grab and make the assumption that they are going to be worth money, because many of them are not worth reselling on eBay. And of course, there's a brand new line, just from this year and last year, of Monster High dolls that you could probably still find new in box in places. And these are not selling. I have some new ones because I wasn't sure how in demand they would be. But yeah, they're not selling. They're sitting. I've had a couple sell, but really not worth reselling at this point. I probably will just end up holding on to them and hope that in 10 years from now, it might be worth selling. So yeah, you really got to find the sweet spot with Monster High, because there is a lot. And I've also found that accessories are generally not worth picking up most of the time either, unless you have a complete set of one of the more desirable sets. And I have sold those, so they can be, but yeah, those like furniture and things like that. If you find actual Monster High dolls, like outfits and shoes and stands, those are definitely worth picking up. But when you see those furniture sets, not as much. I tend to not go for those, and for good reason, because they don't sell. They sit, and when they do sell, they don't sell for a lot. So be selective with your Monster High. It is not just any Monster High anything that is valuable. So I'm giving you the deets and the specifics so you all know. And I do consider myself somewhat of a Monster High connoisseur at this point, but I had to learn from my mistakes. And like I said, my mistakes are still listed on eBay, hoping somebody will buy them. So it's a learning process with a lot of these things. Next, another, possibly shocking item is American Girl dolls. Maybe you might remember my short where I found that American Girl doll for $5. I have that doll listed for not even that much. I think just under $40, and it's been sitting forever. Are there valuable American Girl dolls? For sure, there are, but we cannot just go buying them assuming we're going to get $60, $70 for each one, because that is not the case. So for sure, do your research and make sure that the American Girl doll that you are looking at has sold frequently for good prices, because you can find sales comps, but how long is it going to sit before you get that price? Can you wait that long? Some people can, but I am still waiting for a measly profit on my $5 American Girl doll that seemed to be a no-brainer to pick up. So just a little warning to you all. And I've also seen a lot of like newer American Girl doll accessories like still in the package that I thought would be a home run for sure. Fortunately, I looked them up and found out, guess what? This wasn't even worth buying, even at $6 or $7. The accessories, some of them are worth under $20. Like, these are not high-end items necessarily. Some of them are the vintage ones, like those first ones issued. Holy potatoes, like those are super valuable. But you really need to do your homework. With American Girl dolls, you need to look it up. You need to see what sell-through ratios are. You need to know that it's a good pickup. And, a lot of places like Once Upon a Child will sell any American Girl doll for $20, and sometimes that's not worth it. So just be careful. A little tip, I found that the Welly Wishers dolls, the smaller ones, not only do they often get priced cheaper than the regular American Girl dolls, they sell really well. I have not had any problem selling Welly Wishers. So just that tip for me. Welly Wishers dolls have been really good pickups for me every single time. So be on the lookout for those. Next, we're going to talk about Polly Pockets. Vintage Polly Pockets? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Newer Polly Pockets? No, no, no. Do not buy newer Polly Pockets. It is all about the vintage Polly Pockets. I have had a Polly Pockets case stuffed full of newer Polly Pocket stuff that I got at a garage sale, gosh, almost 2 years ago now. And it's still sitting, and it will sit for who knows how long. And I have it priced at like a very affordable, cheap price. No one's buying it. It's just sitting there. Do not buy, even if it seems like a good deal for newer stuff, I would advise against it. It's just not selling, the newer stuff. So stay away. But buy vintage for sure. That was one of, my best sales of the year that I got for only $45 and sold in the 600s. So I can't stop talking about that. Vintage Polly Pocket is amazing, but do not buy the new stuff to resell. It's just not worth it. Not yet. Maybe when it turns vintage, it might be, but for right now, it's the old G1 type stuff. That's what you got to find. Last but not least, super soakers. Many of them can be very valuable, but just because it's vintage and super soaker does not mean that it's an automatic pickup. I made this mistake. I purchased a super soaker jump rope thinking I was going to be able to sell it for $100 because it was brand new and super soaker and it was kind of unusual. Guess what? That's been listed for years now and nobody's bought it, and I progressively marked it down, and summer just ended and it didn't get sold. I'm not optimistic that it'll sell next summer either. So you have to be careful. There are very valuable super soakers that are vintage, I assure you. And this past summer I picked up some that seemed to have a little bit of value, but maybe just not the demand that others have, because they are still sitting also, and I think I've priced them pretty fairly. So you have to be careful with super soakers and make sure that they are the ones that are selling the most frequently for the most money, the ones that are selling all year long, even in, December where it's only nice in Florida. You got to look, you got to see. You can't just grab vintage super soakers because they're vintage super soakers. I made this mistake. I'm here to tell you not to make that mistake as well. The big theme of this video in general is that it's important to look up and not just know that a single item is valuable, because there's variations of things. And chances are there's going to be items that are very valuable and items that are not valuable. And you just want to make sure that you get the valuable ones and you do not get the unvaluable ones. And again, that's when sell-through ratio is important. How many are listed versus sold? Chances are if there's a bunch listed, it's been sitting for a while. It's sometimes just finding one single comp can be misleading because, again, you don't know how long that item sat before it's sold. So it's important to see multiple sold listings, and not a ton listed still. That's a good sign that you've got a nice, rare, valuable item that will sell quickly. But you just, these are all important lessons to learn. And to those of you that are new at reselling, I hope this was incredibly helpful, just these tips in general. Even to your seasoned resellers, I hope that there was some items here that you will know to look into a little better before, you just grab and think is valuable. And we make mistakes all the time. I make mistakes frequently as a reseller, and it's just kind of part of the learning process. We're always learning as resellers, which is one of my favorite parts, actually. I love learning, as I go. I think it's great to just keep filling our minds with new things. But that's going to be it for this week. My name is Melanie. This is Crow's Thrifty Finds. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't. That really helps my channel. And I'll see you all next week.